What's up, guys? You are on the books, or you are off the books with Bethann and Samantha. You are on the air and off the books with Bethann and Samantha. And today we have author Misty, is it Zaugg? Am I pronouncing that?
Yes, perfect.
Okay. Misty Zaugg. She is with us today to talk a little bit about her and what it's like being an author. We actually just read her book, Deadly Lockdown, and this is a 3-book series, 4?
Yeah, it's a trilogy, completed
Okay.
trilogy.
Yes. So we just read and finished this book. I really, really loved it. So she is going
very edge of your seat.
Yeah.
Constant like things happening.
It was definitely like, it definitely took turns that I was not expecting.
Agreed.
Well, that's what an author loves to hear.
Yes. Okay. So do you just want to tell us a little bit about yourself, and also if you want to talk about your co-author at all? This was written by Misty Zaugg and Stephanie
Milcreast. Yeah, Stephanie Milcreast.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm Misty Zaugg. I grew up doing a whole bunch of different things. So I think I love to read. I'm the kid who would sneak the flashlight under the bed. You know, this is before e-readers, right?
Yes.
When we actually needed to see our books to read them. And I would find an author I loved, and I would just like check out all the books at the library. So kudos to you too, working at the library. I love libraries. They are the best invention. You know, we had a big family, not a lot of money. So the only reason I could afford books was the library. And I loved reading the bios about the authors. You know, they're like scuba divers who was a sniper in the army, and all these, crazy things. So I guess I kind of prepared for that. I got my MD. I have a black belt. I bake bread. I kept bees. I don't clean my house. I don't organize my house. I don't do much laundry unless I have to. So all the stuff other moms spend their time on, I was doing crazy things just because I enjoyed them. And I homeschooled my kids so that they could do the same, have the same freedoms to do
all the fun as well.
That's
and
awesome.
I've always liked to write. So I have some little book I wrote in kindergarten, and but I'm also a practical business-minded person. I'm an entrepreneur since I was little. I would buy candy cheap at the grocery store and sell it at school for double, that kind of stuff.
Dang, yeah.
And when I looked at being a writer, it's totally sucked, right? Because writers they make like 3 to 5% of the sale price on the book, and give 10% of that to their agent. And so really it was kind of like being an actor. You know, there's these people at the top that are making huge amounts of money, and then there's the rest of us that are all, working a waitress job while they hope to make it big.
Right.
And so, but then, in the last few years, the indie revolution happened. Amazon and their Kindle happened, and then the gatekeepers of the big, trad publishers, you don't have to get your book accepted anymore. It also means you don't have to edit it, and you don't have to have good grammar, and you don't have to have a good cover, but you can throw it up on Amazon and the people decide, right? If they buy it, they buy it. If they don't, then you learned that there's something missing with your product. And people were able to also, because we're individuals, we can shift pretty quickly. So there were a lot of readers whose needs weren't being met by the big typical writers, and lots like post-apoc was one of those. And there weren't a lot of post-apoc movies, or there were more movies, but there weren't very many books. So then a whole group of us writers started writing, and then the readers would snap them up, and suddenly I got a bunch of money, and I'm like, wow, I'm going to keep writing these. And then that's how the market starts to work. So at that point I decided, hey, I've always wanted to write.
Yeah.
Now I can just write and see if someone wants to pay money for it. I don't have to go through a big company to do that.
Really cool.
So that was about 3 years ago.
So I have a question then. So when you put your book up, does it immediately go just up as an ebook? And then after so long, it becomes available to be a book that's purchased, like a hard copy?
Well, basically, I had this vision of spending 80 to 90% of my time writing. And then I would just take a little 10% of my time, and I would do the other stuff. Well, it's more 50-50, right?
Oh, okay.
That's the brutal thing of it. So you have to do everything. So that is the benefit. If you go with a traditional publisher, you just write and you send it in. They edit it, they pay for a cover designer, they find the cover designer in the first place, they tell them what to fix on it. They have 5 or 6 editors it goes through. So if you do any English, you probably realize, there's plot editors, story editors, there's line editors, copy editors,
all kinds of stuff.
and each of those people gets paid, you know, and depending how long your book is, it
Right.
could be a couple $1,000s, right?
Yeah.
And then you have to do this all yourself. And so you can put that all up. When you're finished with your story, you're like, I want to post it. Well, now you
Yeah.
have to format it. So the funny thing is my first book, I'm like, oh, I want to format it. I'm like, I don't know how to format it. So I got a program called Vellum that does it pretty well. But then it's like, what do you want to put in the top corner? I'm like, I don't know what goes in the top corner of a book.
Yeah.
So I went to my bookshelf, flipped it open. I'm like, oh yeah, you know, they're like, do you want to put the author last name and the page number? And do you want to put it up here or over here? Like all these like layout decisions I had no clue about. So I just started flipping through books on my bookshelf and kind of copied those. They're like, what size do you want your book? I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
So all of that is involved in the paperback. The ebooks, you just have to format and have a ebook cover, which is just the front cover. To do the paperback, you're going to have to, whoever you bought your cover from will also charge you maybe another $50 to do the paperback layout. And they'll have to do the spine and they'll have to do the back. You have to decide what's on the back, what's written on the back. And you basically get this long image that is like, it looks like a dust cover, but without the flaps. And then it has to fit your book perfectly. And if Amazon doesn't like it, they'll spit it back at you because depending how long your book is, you got to make the spine the right length, right, the right thickness.
Right.
Oh, okay.
And when you do all that, that's when your paperback goes live. So it has
Okay.
nothing to do with how long your book's been up. It's you designing the product and uploading the correct stuff. So the ebook is easier.
Yeah.
And most independent writers probably sell anywhere from 70 to 90% of their income comes from ebooks. So
Oh,
many
wow.
of them will not even bother with a paperback.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there are readers who are like, I don't do e-readers. I want to hold a book in my
Yeah.
hand.
Right.
So you're
exactly.
trying, when it's the first time you've done it, it's kind of a big mountain to figure out how to upload your first paperback. Once you've done it, you know, it's a few hours of extra work, but you've already written the book. You've already done the cover. You pay a little extra to your designer,
Right.
and then you just spend the time doing it.
That's
But
so-
I know some people, some companies and independent writers and small presses won't even bother with paperbacks. And the same goes to hardback. It's just another size. You have to do the work to come up with all the parts. And audio would be the last thing. And that is a whole nother kettle, which I have yet to open.
Right.
You have to pay an average of $200 to $300 per finished hour of your audiobook. And
Oh my
Whoa.
gosh.
because you're paying a narrator, so it's per finished hour. So what they do is they sit down and they read your book. Oops, they made a mistake. They cut it, they do it again. Then they edit it. And then they do something called mastering, which is like editing for sound, which I don't understand. I just know the word. And when it's all done, they have an hour of your book. That's the finished hour. And that might have taken 3 or 4 hours to make.
Wow.
So
that's
they're
insane.
getting paid that 200 or 300 for probably 4 hours of work, but it's an hour finished product. And 100,000 word book, which is say 350 pages, will be about 10 finished hours. So you're looking at $2,000 to $3,000 that you have to plunk down, hoping you'll make it back.
Oh my gosh.
That's crazy.
There are also profit sharing. So if your book's popular enough, you will maybe find a narrator who won't charge you anything, and they'll take half the money for the next 7 years off your audiobook.
Wow.
And there are small presses popping up that are like exclusive to certain subgenres, and they will go out and find the top books in their subgenre and say, hey, do you want to negotiate for the audio rights for your book? And then they won't give you very much, but they will do all the work. So it's kind of a,
We're in the wrong field. We need to
Yeah.
start
It sounds like a
doing
lot of.
audiobook reading.
I don't know that I have.
yeah,
voice
so
for that.
narration,
but
and
man.
narration is going independent too. So if you have a good voice and you're able to speak clearly and not make too many mistakes, you can make your own little DIY sound booth with PVC pipe and heavy blankets, right?
Right.
The biggest challenge is in the recording, which guys would know more than I do about that, but you have to get it between certain decibel levels so that Amazon accepts it or Audible accepts it. So you could record your whole thing incorrectly and have to start over, which would be sad.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
So you really got to do a chapter, test it, run it through, see if Audible would accept it, make sure the ceiling and the floor of your sound, all that stuff. I'm basically speaking about what I don't know about. This is as much as I know about the
That is
process.
really cool though. We
Yeah.
had no idea.
And
that-
you can do it yourself. So what Audible has is they have I forgot the name of the marketplace, AFX marketplace. Anyway, through Audible, anybody can go up, you post some of your samples, you post some of the jobs you've already done once you have references, and then you can negotiate. So that's the next step for me with the Deadly Lockdown series, is we're going to take the money we've made on it and try and pay for the whole series. But we've been intending to do that since March, and neither of us have made the time to go learn a whole new,
Yeah,
part of
that's
the
quite a
business.
bit. You're right. You're definitely like an entrepreneur. You have like been the forerunner for your entire career.
Yeah, we each have to pretty much be an entire publishing house ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is
So
insane.
do you know are you friends with your co-author? How did you guys?
Yeah.
Oh,
how
get
did you
into
guys
the
meet
hoops.
then?
So Steph is like the best friend sister I never met, or that I finally did meet, right? That
Yeah.
Yeah.
she's awesome. So I've never actually met her IRL, in real life.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And we met on Facebook. So I started joining some author groups because the business side of me is like, okay, let's learn if this is viable. I don't want to spend all this time writing and make $5,
Right.
So, and I ran into her at a post-apoc women's group about women writers who wrote post-apoc. And we just commented on a few posts together, and then we were both brand new authors. So we'd both been writing for like all of 4 or 5, 6 months. I can't remember when we met. And then we just started helping each other out. So she was like my buddy, like you two kind of seem to be,
Yeah.
So as we were learning all this complicated non-writing stuff that neither of us had realized we had to learn, we would help each other out. I'd say, I'd ask her, what about Amazon ads? Have you tried those? She's like, well, I've done this and it didn't work. And so we were like each other's sounding boards, and it was really great. I don't know if either of us would still be writing if we hadn't found the other, because
Oh,
we
wow.
just totally motivate each other. And
That's
then
awesome.
after we'd both written our own series, we got a chance to get a contract with a small press, Moanic Press, that did our Aftermath series, and they only do post-apoc. And they normally work with indie authors, and they pay way better than the traditional publishers do. They give you a very nice chunk of the money, but then they do all the work. So
Right.
Steph does not like the non-writing work,
Yeah.
especially the advertising and stuff. Have
That
to
is a
tune your own
lot.
horn and pay money and figure out how to get people to find your book. She just wants her book to go out there and everybody to love it and come to it.
Understandable.
understand
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Which
kinda
is what we
podcast.
all would love to have happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
And
was gonna
so
say, just-
now we just are best friends. When we decided to do co-writing together, normally you would make sure you write down expectations together and get a contract with each other in case somebody has a blow up,
right.
just because it's your business. And I was like, should we do that? She's like, well, I trust you, and it's like the friend I never fight with and I can always talk to, and we get along amazingly. So I don't know that's easy to duplicate. I don't have a
Right,
ton,
yeah.
I don't have a ton of friends, so she's on my list of the few good friends I've had in my life on one hand. So
That is really awesome.
Yeah.
That's so cool. So
yeah, so
then,
she was in Australia, so she had this great accent, and
oh yeah,
Oh,
the
awesome.
cool.
Yeah.
now
Australia
she's in the
accent.
United
She's
Arab
fancy.
Emirates.
Yes. I love it.
So we're trying to figure out how to transfer her half of the money from the series over to UAE dollars or whatever they're called over there.
Right.
Yeah, that's so neat. So then you guys collaborated every step of the way to be able to write the book then, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes
So
I think in my mind, like when I'm reading something that's co-authored, I always, for some weird reason, I always think like, okay, you're writing all the odd chapters. Then
Yeah.
I'm writing all the even chapters.
Yeah.
And I
well,
know
that's
that it
kind
can
of what
work
we
that
did.
way.
And that's not actually very typical. Most co-writers, they'll come up with something. And a co-writer can be a tiny percent, they could just be funding the book, right? They
Right.
could
Right.
be the producer kind of thing,
Oh, okay. So
or they could be putting their name on the book because their name's more popular. Imagine if J.K. Rowling said, hey, would you like to co-write with me? I'd be like, you just sit back, I will write the whole book. And you
Yeah,
just put your name on
absolutely.
the front.
Yeah.
So
like
there's
James
that kind of
Patterson,
co-writing.
right? Like James Patterson and how
Yes,
he
James
has all
Patterson. So a lot of the big guys do that. They do in general, I don't know details, but in general, they'll keep some kind of creative control, right? They're going to make sure that you didn't write garbage. They're going to make
Right.
sure it fits with their theme or the whatever series you're writing for. Make sure it fits in.
Huh.
But with Steph and I, we actually did that other chapter. What we did is we decided to write both our series that we co-wrote. We picked 2 women, and she
Okay.
wrote 2 women main characters, and they in the beginning they weren't together, and they ended up meeting up through the series. So she wrote one and I wrote the other.
That's so cool.
That is cool.
And like it has to be almost perfect too. Like you said, your dynamic as friends
Mhm.
heavily influenced possibly the way that your book came together and like the events that happened. Like
Yeah.
that is really cool. So you guys had to be in contact constantly, right? To be able to like
Yeah,
compare
we
notes.
Facebook message a lot. So she's younger than me with younger kids. We have a lot of things in common, and then we're polar opposites about some things. Like we both homeschool. We're mostly vegetarian, vegan. We care a lot about our kids, but I'm very conservative Christian, and she's very agnostic, like doesn't believe in God.
Yeah.
And I'm very conservative politically, and she's very liberal.
Right.
And-
Yeah.
But the cool thing is, like, we're the test case to show America and the rest of the world that, hey, you know, you can
Awesome.
respect each
Possible,
other's
yeah.
polar opposite views and still be okay. She'll ask me about my religious stuff and I'll explain it. She's like, oh, that's really interesting. I didn't know that, because she feels safe and comfortable asking me, because I'm not going to unfriend her.
Exactly.
Right.
Or you're gonna blow
And
up.
she can tell me about her
Yeah.
climate concerns, that she's very concerned about leaving the world a better place for her kids, you know, and I'm more lazy about that stuff. I recycle when I remember kind of person.
Right. Yeah.
And yet I can ask her stuff and she knows I respect and love her
Yeah.
and her opinions, because I
Yeah.
care
That's
about her as a
awesome.
person.
I
So
love that. That is such a great example. And too, and I feel like for like our listeners and stuff like that, it also shows them that people can accomplish things. Like if you
Yeah.
have these dreams and these goals and these visions to do things, they're doable. Yeah, it takes a
Yeah.
little bit of work, and it's
I think all of the creative industry is turning that direction. So my daughter has loved to sing since she was a kid. She has a gorgeous voice just naturally, right? And she went
Yeah.
to singing camp, but she still is kind of a thing she does on the side. And she just ran into a friend from the singing camp who's doing the sound mastering part. And they're recording a song that she wrote, and she's going to put it up on Spotify, right?
That's
so
awesome.
neat.
Like,
I love that.
That's what the
people-
creative industry is doing. The big guns, the big music companies is the only way you could make it big before. But now you can go on YouTube and get a following with your singing, or,
Right.
you know, or YouTube with your
Anything.
funny shorts or your animations. My son's getting an associate's in animation, and he has a YouTube channel. He made $1,000 in December when he went viral once, you know. He's made
That is
100 since then,
Amazing.
but you know, he's making less than 100, 10, 20, $50. But that $1,000 a month, man, that gave him quite the motivation to be creative.
Yeah.
But it's also a thing too. It's like your passion. You enjoy it. You love it,
Right.
and you're fulfilled because you do it. That's
Yeah.
really, that is so cool. And I love too. And it really ties into our podcast. Like we just decided one day, like this is what we're gonna do, and
Yeah.
we're gonna work together on it, and we're gonna get to do all these awesome things and talk to
Mhm.
these awesome people, and then boom, like
Yeah, live your
have the
dreams, go for it.
availability.
With the
Right.
technology now and the ability to do stuff as an individual in almost all these creative fields. Like, could you even do a podcast 15 years ago? You know, nobody even knew what a podcast was.
Right.
Yeah.
But now
I-
everybody just can put an app on their phone. You guys can record your thing and pop it up. There's no company controlling
Yeah.
it.
I feel like since like the last 2-3 years, podcasts have gone
Really,
like
yeah.
like just everything, like Kindle Unlimited, like
Like you said.
ebooks and stuff like that. They're so popular. And I think a lot of that is because TikTok became a thing and has just like super marketed all these like Kindle Unlimited books that nobody like knows about,
It
because
has
it's
been a
not
forerunner.
like Sarah J. Maas. It's not,
Sure. Yeah.
you know, a huge author. And
That's
these
on
are
TikTok's
just as
on my
good.
list too.
yeah.
Yes.
And audiobooks, TikTok,
Yeah.
somewhere in there I try to write.
Yeah,
it is
it's
so good.
crazy. And then like you like miss out on all these good books because you're just like, oh, like they're probably not that good because they're only like a couple bucks, or like
But
I've
it's
never
not
heard
true.
of them. And like some of the best books I've ever read are
Yes.
like free Kindle Unlimited books. Like
Or
Yeah.
exactly. Or like authors that you haven't heard of or things like
Right.
that too. Like they're some of the most influential things. And
yeah.
I love, like you said, that we have access to that. And that brings us back around. I think the pandemic also did like open up the doorway for us to be able to reach in and try to connect more.
Yeah.
And the way we could do that was virtually. And that
Yeah.
opened up all these doors for stuff.
Mhm.
And that
And you're going to find your indie authors are totally happy to interact with their fans, because
Yeah, which is
they're
awesome.
sitting I'm sitting in my bathroom. This is where I write. I have a window in front of me, you know, and so I'm typing
That's
away at my
cool.
book, and I'm like, does anybody read this? Is it good? I'm not sure it's very good. I think
It's
it's
good.
good, but I've read it 5 times now because I've been editing it. And now it seems
Right.
boring.
Yes,
so
and it's in
they're
our
like,
library
somebody goes,
now.
I loved your book. You're like, oh, really? Tell me more.
Yes,
Yes.
because, and it's in our library, like I said, like we were able to purchase it and be able to put it on our shelves for other people. And
that's
I
awesome.
think that's so important because
Yeah.
we should
Too bad
take
I can't
everything-
virtually autograph it for you.
Yes.
Oh, yes, that'd be so cool.
We should figure that out. What I could like do with a pen and send you the file. You could print it on a sticker and put
There's
it. in a
got to
book or
be a
something.
way,
Oh,
you
that'd
know?
be so neat.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's
Gotta be a
gotta
way.
be. That would be so cool, actually.
Okay. So I have a question. Okay.
Okay.
What drew you to like the post-apocalyptic pandemic type plot?
For this particular book.
Oh, okay. This has a really funny history. We took a lot of flack for this because of 2020. But at the beginning, when we published the book, we clarified that we actually started writing this in, guess what? 2019. So Steph and I decided in the summer of 2019 that we were going to co-write a book together.
Mm-hmm.
And then we started writing Deadly Lockdown. And I said, well, I have my MD, right? I never practiced as a doctor, but I got my expensive certificate, right?
Right.
And I call them my expensive initials. So
Expensive initial, like
I
that.
said, and we were brainstorming and we didn't want to do an EMP. We like the EMP ones, but that's like the most common. If you read post-apoc, lots of people do the EMP. And the reason is it's a sudden thing, boom, and it really impacts
Right.
society. All your phones stop working,
Right,
your
yeah.
car stops driving, your electricity is gone. And so it's an all or nothing boom, right? And so that makes for a really great opening. Whereas if it's the slow slide of the economy failing, that's kind of hard to get excited about.
Right.
Right.
So I was like, well, let's do a virus, just a really fast one. And we explained this. And then later people was like, oh, you're just lying. You're just taking advantage of COVID. So we just took that part out because we didn't want to deal with the drama. But we had finished, I ended up researching the Spanish flu because this was like, they call it the forgotten flu that happened in 1912, I think.
Yes.
But it came through like crazy. I went onto some of the like Samoan islands and it would kill like 30, 40, 50% of the population. There were like these two islands and one enacted they kept the boats away immediately and nobody died. And this island, the government red tape took a while to stop the ships from docking and stuff and doing a quarantine. And they lost like 30, 40% of people. It hit every known pocket of people in the whole world and just wiped people out.
Right.
So we patterned it after that.
Right.
And then COVID happened. And we had wanted to write the 3 books first. So one of the business secrets of publishing books is that you want to publish kind of fast. So when you get on Amazon, it gives you a little boost to your brand new book because they realize nobody's seen it yet. So they can't leave it at the bottom of the pile because there's no stars, no views.
Makes sense.
They have to give it a boost in case it's good. And that boost lasts anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks. So ideally, you would release a book and then 4 to 6 weeks, release another book and 4 to 6 weeks, release another book so that they kind of keep floating each other. It's like getting a ball to keep bouncing in, a balloon to keep bouncing in the air. And, but we, at the same time, we then got this contract that to work with Moanic and write the other 6 books. And then COVID happened and we were like, my co-writer really doesn't want people to think that she is trying to take advantage of something as tragic as COVID.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
So it's like, oh, we're not the money grubbers who was like, oh, COVID, let's go make money off of COVID and write a book about COVID.
Right. That makes sense.
So we basically kept it. And because we'd gotten that other contract, we wrote the other 6 books for that series. And when that one was done, before it was published, we finished book 2 and 3 of our trilogy and then published it. But pretty much 90% of book 1 was written before COVID. And then people would say, oh, it's just all about masks and washing hands, as if COVID invented that. I'm like,
Right.
yeah. Spanish flu.
Right.
Yeah.
They washed hands too. There was a mask ordinance in the town. There were ordinances against large gatherings. One city had a homecoming for the soldiers coming home, and another city said, no, we're going to ban that. And everybody's all upset because, you know, soldiers came home from fighting to protect us. We need to celebrate it. Well, the town that had the parade, boom, big flu went through everybody, killed a bunch of people, the ones that quarantined. So all those words that are so common to us now, we're going to be so exciting in this book as like this strange new way of living with masks and quarantine. And we were a little too late. So
man, how could like coincidental?
Yeah,
Is that
that's
because
crazy.
We were just curious because we were just like, well, maybe like that was like something that, because it's scary, you know, it's definitely like take this thing and like amplify it. And it's like that thrill that people like see.
Yeah, so it
after
was
it.
going to be this great thrill. So then it became, for people who really liked the book, it became, so some people wonder, like, how can you read about a disaster when you're a viral disaster when you're living a viral disaster?
Right.
Who wants more of that? I want to go read fluffy cupcake, stories or something. But other people are like, well, because post-apoc is really a hope one, the hero always wins, even though all this bad stuff happens. You dig deep for inner strength and figure out how to survive and triumph. And so for some people, it's like, okay, these people were able to triumph in something similar. Maybe I can. So it's kind of like,
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you'd be surprised though, because like when all this stuff happened, like people are so drawn to like that macabre thing and want to dig deep and know more and like figure things out. And so I think that a lot of that, because I did a display. Do you remember that display that I did? It was all about like the Ebola outbreak and all this other stuff. Like when it was right after, like we were able to kind of come back.
Yeah.
And then everyone was like, I don't know if like you should do that. I'm like, you'd be surprised how people really flock to these things to know and to like, because it opens up this new avenue of like learning and knowledge and like that scientific thing or like what's happening. Because you're right, things like this have happened everywhere in varying degrees of like severity, and people run to those things.
Yeah, the Black Plague and Ebola and the Spanish flu, that was the forgotten flu. Nobody had heard about it before COVID if you talk to a few people. And now the book about it, there's a nonfiction book about it, was one of the bestsellers in that category. And I was like, I found it first. I found it first.
That's really cool.
Yeah. And so we're going to try to like not spoil the book.
Yeah, we don't want to spoil the book for people who want to pick it up.
Yes. Which is really hard for us because we spoil books in almost every podcast we do.
Yes.
Yeah. So
yes, we
spoiler
do.
alert, maybe. No, I really loved Deadly Lockdown. It literally went from like 100 to like 5,000.
Like instantly.
I was not expecting the twist that it took.
Well, it took like 3 or 4
Yeah.
throughout the whole book. And then like you end, and then this, I don't know if I mean, it's a cliffhanger.
Yeah.
But it's
hopefully it's enough of a cliff to make you pick up book 2. People say they hate cliffhangers, but if you don't leave cliffhangers, they don't turn the page.
Right. Like who wants a resolved ending on like a 6 series?
Right.
Book? Yeah.
You want to resolve, so what I don't really like cliffs either. So I try to resolve the main plot.
Right.
Yeah.
Then I leave some cliffs. So you're like, whoa, wait a minute, what's happening next? Right. But you're still satisfied. Like you had your meal, but I'm only going to give you half your dessert.
Right. You got to like have something to go into. It just can't be like, and
Half the
everybody
brownie-
happily ever after.
Half the brownie is in book 2 and you had 2 bites of it.
Yeah, exactly. And you have to like, you want to go after it. And the good thing about this series is you can. So if you read it, you can go and you can get the next one.
I was like, because it takes the 2 main characters, so like Kate and then Elisa's story for me. I was like, what?
I'll have to have you guess. And who do you think wrote Kate? And who do you think wrote Elisa?
You wrote Kate.
Okay, what's your guess, Beth?
Okay, let me think. Okay, so
And I won't answer until you guess.
no, because okay,
Is it a trick question?
this has got to be a trick question. Okay, like this.
You're overthinking it probably.
I am overthinking it.
If she knows that I know that she knows that I know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking. You got to be right, Samantha. You have to be right because the whole.
Okay, this is why I think that you wrote Kate. Okay.
Okay,
go.
I'm listening. Okay.
When
I'll tell you
I
through it.
read Kate's part, it reminded me a lot of like my conservative side of the family because they're all like preppers and yes, this is what we need to prepare for this. And so you said that you're a conservative Christian and those are kind of like your beliefs. And that is why I think that you wrote Kate.
All right. Do you want me to tell you the answer? Or are you still going to stew about it?
No, I'm
Yes,
ready.
I wrote Kate.
Okay.
Yes, I knew it.
The interesting thing though is Steph is just as much a prepper as I am. So that's one place.
Really?
Yeah.
So as a liberal agnostic, she is a total prepper because she also is a realist. She's like, okay, I can see what's going on around us.
Yeah.
And anybody who watches the news, I mean, preppers don't have to be preparing for a zombie apocalypse that is
Right.
fictitious.
True.
It could just be that huge storm that just hit whatever coast of wherever and knocked out
Yeah.
power and water for 2 weeks. So, you know, that I'm also about being prepared. I have a family. Like when you have kids,
Right.
Yeah.
right? I'm gonna have a couple weeks of immediate to eat food, and then I'm gonna have a year's supply of you know, staples of wheat and beans and stuff like that that we
Yeah.
eat on a regular basis.
And
Yeah.
I need to rethink I think I'm so fantastical that I really want it. Like when it comes, like go big or go home, zombie apocalypse.
Yeah.
Like,
Like Walking Dead style. Like
So
that's
actually, my religion encourages us to be self-reliant and to have a
Yeah.
food storage.
Mhm.
And so, but people have used it when they lost their job,
Yeah.
when there's power outage, when the water when tornado, whoever the tornado named after hit, or like, you know, if you were in New Orleans during Katrina, right?
Yeah.
Wouldn't you have liked to have some 5-gallon buckets full of supplies and a backpack for
Yeah.
each kid?
exactly.
Right. And cash at home because no credit card machines aren't working because power's out.
Yeah. I'm gonna.
Yeah. And it was very relatable reading like Kate, like going through these stores and everything's out of stock.
It was.
Cause it's like
Yes.
every time.
And I
Indiana-
wrote that before 2020. So we actually missed the toilet paper. We did not know. No, I don't think anybody predicted the toilet paper, but I predicted
did
because
not.
we live in Michigan and every time there's a storm warning,
Yeah.
like, okay, like, oh, we've never had a storm ever in my whole life.
Right.
Good. Run to the store, buy all the bottled water and the batteries.
And that's how Indiana
Like,
is
what?
too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go to the
Like,
store.
here, I'm going to give you a hint. There's going to be storms this year. Why don't you buy
Yeah.
some bottled water and batteries before?
Yes,
we're
we
getting
do.
2 inches of snow. We have to buy every
It's
single
always
thing.
milk and bread.
Yeah, milk and
yes,
bread.
And we
Milk and
always
bread.
like laughed. People are gonna go home and make milk and bread sandwiches because
Yeah.
like,
Like, what are you
what
gonna
if you
do?
don't have things to put on your bread?
I still wonder if people have like these big stacks of toilet paper that they never used yet.
Oh my
They
gosh,
must.
though.
I
They
mean,
have to.
My thing is, why aren't you going to like Sam's Club or Costco, like
And just
buying
buy
like the
big
bulk?
packs,
Yeah.
because it lasts us like 6 months.
Not
to
like 27 like single toilet paper
paper
rolls.
things. Yeah,
Yeah, and
exactly.
hand sanitizer, remember how that was a huge thing? And then
Oh,
suddenly
yes.
everybody
gosh.
had plenty. And so then there was these big like discount shelves on all the end caps at the
Oh.
grocery store of
Yeah.
They would have
10
carts
brands of
full.
hand sanitizer.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh my gosh. And then they were making hand sanitizer out of like, what is it? Was it vodka and stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah. Something.
I
Yeah, all
remember
the
some kind of
distilleries.
alcohol, and it was the most like potent, like if that didn't do it. Like,
And this isn't gonna like, get rid of the germs.
then
Nothing.
nothing is going to, because I'm
Yeah.
Well, and I had
stingy
some,
now.
there were some happy coincidences. So I randomly just chose St. Louis for the city where Kate starts out in.
Yeah.
And then I had the mayor was doing a lockdown. Like we have all these big cities with lots of stuff going on and nobody's going to be allowed to go in or out, but she had to get out. She had to get home to her sister and stuff.
Right.
And so then I'm like, wait a minute, how would you lock down like a US city nowadays, right? Think of all the roads in and out and stuff.
Yeah.
Well, we had just randomly chosen that her home was to the east. And then I looked at Google Maps is amazing for this kind of stuff.
Right.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
a big old river that I didn't even know about running through on the east side of St. Louis. And I'm like, now that you could blockade. And so
Right.
all of that was a happy coincidence that they could have, you know, the National Guard on the different bridges, and it would have been really hard to get out. They could block the freeway going north and south. And then this isn't too much of a spoiler, but see, now I'm doing it. But it was so exciting. So I just remember this day, I'm on the maps. I'm like, I need a way for Kate and her crew to get out, right? And I'm like, is there any? And all the major bridges, I figured there are like 3 or 4 of them, they would be blocked. So I zoom in on Google Maps and there's this little tiny line. I'm like, what is that? And I zoom in and it says some old something bridge. And I'm like, ooh, I go look that up. Turns out it used to be part of Highway 60 something. And I was like, I wonder if a car could get across it. And it turns out that they open it once a year for this car parade of old cars to go across in commemoration of the highway, something, whatever. But normally it's blocked and it's just a walking bridge. And I'm like, perfect. So that whole section of the towards the end of book 1, that was a happy coincidence of Google Maps. So anybody out there who's aspiring to write, in an area that's real life, not fantasy land.
Right.
Google Maps.
Google Maps.
See, and that's another thing too, is so interesting, is because you do have to do a lot of research and know, because like when the pandemic hit, I was kind of blindsided about it, because with all honesty, I didn't think like something like that would really go down the way that it did. But
nobody thought they would actually lock down quarantine. We're America. We have medicine for that.
Yeah.
And also too, though, it just shows I don't know if it was my naivety or something like that with all of that, but I didn't anticipate those things, but you did. You really honestly, you literally wrote a book about something that instantly, boom, happened. And it's just there. And you had to go through and you had to do research, like you said, on the Spanish flu, and you had to know your history and you had to know the procedures and stuff like that. And then you went to Google Maps. So being a writer, it's making up the story and it's putting it down and hoping people enjoy it. But it's also knowing your world, knowing your environment, studying and learning, and it's growing. And it's so interesting because it's so dynamic to be an author.
That's half the fun. You have to really love that stuff if you want to write. So one is the world that you create and understand and the plot. And then you have to create characters that are real enough. You can't have a hero that's perfectly good or a villain that's perfectly bad.
Right.
You want to basically pick your main characters. They're going to have flaws and they're going to have some good and bad, and come out as a hero in the end, but only after getting over a bunch of severe hangups. But you're trying to basically, whatever readers are out there that are going to be reading your book, you want to put them in your book, with all of their complexities. And the better you can make them like the reader, the better the reader's going to love it, because they can see themselves. They're like, oh, I had depression and it was hard for me to get up, and I can't imagine if I had a virus what I would be, a viral plague, how I would handle that. But we like to also think that we would triumph. We think that if it were this bad, I would be one of those good guys out there, saving people and, purifying my water and handing it out to thirsty children,
It's so awesome. It's so awesome.
So it's pretty fun. Well, so interesting. So writing with a co-writer, one of the things I loved about it. So normally when I write a book, I sit down, I outline it, and basically everything in there, all those characters had to come from my head, and I'm only one person. So obviously they're going to be slanted a little towards me as a person. And I'm trying to make up a bad person that kills people, which I don't do. And I'm trying to make up, all these people that aren't me. And I don't have any feedback. So by the time I finish writing, I will have written a couple 100,000 words, and I really don't have a clue if it's any good. And I just invested, 3 months of work.
How does that feel?
It is hard to do. You really have to be a bit confident and arrogant and a little cocky.
Oh no.
Otherwise you just quit, because and a lot of authors have that issue. They're like, oh, I just quit halfway through because it's just trash. I'm like, who told you it was trash? Well, I just know it is. I'm like, did you let anybody read it?
No.
Yeah.
Because they're afraid. They don't want anybody to read it in case they do say it's trash.
Well, you're
and I'd say, well, why do you think it's trash, so I can fix that? So if you're just willing to take feedback and improve, because it's like anything, I'm sure your first podcasts weren't as good as your later podcasts, right?
Had a few things.
So just keep writing and you'll get better, and then put it out there to readers, even though it makes you feel very insecure and worried. And then take what they say. They're like, yeah, your one character was horrible. And I was like, okay, why was he horrible?
Right.
Well, because he was so cliche and like a cardboard cut. Okay, so you would have liked to see more of this and this, and suddenly you're in this dialogue to figure out what you can improve. But back to co-writing. So what we did is we sat down and brainstormed the outline for the whole book. So we had chapter 1 through chapter whatever, and of course we write too long, so a lot of our chapters would have to get cut in half and become 2 chapters. And but it was really, we had to outline it because we're working together. But it came into this great routine is I would write my chapter for the day based on the outline. then, or actually I would start the day by reading what she wrote yesterday. And I would put my stuff in, and we're really, since we're such good friends, we can be brutally honest, but we're also very encouraging. So I'll be like, oh, I totally laughed out loud here. Or, oh, this is really tense. This is getting good.
Okay.
Or, hey, wait a minute. I thought
We were doing this.
was doing this and you forgot this. Or in the fight scenes, I'd be like, no, actually, you'd have to get a little closer to be able to use your knife or whatever, right? So, and then she's really good at, I don't describe much. Like if I were to write a preferential book, it would all be actions and emotions and what's going on. But do they have red hair, blue hair? What are they wearing? Misty didn't tell you. My daughter complains about that. She's like, Mom, I want to envision these guys in the book, and what color is their hair? What color is their eye? How tall are they? I'm like, well, they're just there. And but you know
it's
them.
just happening. Yeah.
Whoever
You
you
know who they
think.
are as people,
Yeah.
but you can't. And I was like, well, actually, that's up to you. You can just visualize them how you want. So Steph would catch me on those and see like, hey, here's a good spot to put a little description of your character.
That's really
And so that ended up being so awesome. Every day, I would read the edits that she did on mine, then I would edit hers, and then I would write mine, and then they would go back and forth like that every day. And it was so cool because it's basically like you're getting an audience to read your chapter as you write.
And that helps
One
you.
audience of one, but she's a great audience. So.
Cool.
Yes.
So I highly recommend if you have a bestie that would like to write, that's a great way to start out because it's easy to get
We're
discouraged.
gonna write a
when
book
you start
together.
writing. Imagine if you did your podcast by yourself. How long would you have kept doing it? You know?
0
There's
days.
no way. Yeah, you're
Exactly.
right. There's no way because the banter is the fun part.
Yeah.
You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like that's what helps us keep going, and like helps us find our rhythm, and
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
we're able to
Exactly.
feed off of each other.
Mhm.
So
Yep.
oh, you're right. That's so interesting. Okay.
Yes. So
It still encourages me. So I'm doing another project where I decided to try doing the web serial route, where I'm posting like a few chapters every week up on a website called Royal Road, because I'm doing a different genre. It's fantasy, lit RPG Academy. It's like Harry Potter if you gamified Harry Potter, like he had to get this many points to level up his spell kind of thing.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And so this is really big on Royal Road. And it's only been up a couple weeks, and suddenly I got on their Rising Stars list, and it's taking off like crazy. And then people are donating money over on Patreon to support my story so that I keep writing, and it's doing really well, knock
That's
on wood,
awesome.
for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And who do I tell, right? You tell your friend, guess what? I'm on Royal Road and I got 3 new Patreons paying $10 a month for my book. And they're like,
Yeah.
oh, okay. That's great, Misty. I don't know what you just said, and I heard $10. I don't know why you're so excited about $10. But I tell Steph, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, that is so amazing!" So
Yeah.
I'm so happy for you.
Yeah.
So that's also fun to have a bestie who understands, that you can go brag to, and they're not feeling threatened; they're just excited on your behalf.
Exactly.
Right.
And when she posts her new books up, I'm like, oh, it was so good. And let me write a
Yeah.
review or, let me send it to my newsletter so they can all see it, stuff like that.
That is so cool.
Yes. So we are going to be to anybody who's listening, not right now because we're not live, but you will be listening.
You will be, I'm sure.
Yes.
Future
So
you.
you guys, we're gonna be ordering Deadly Lockdown series.
Now that it is available as a book. Yes.
Yes. We do have Combat Genesis
Yes.
in the library. So yes, anybody who loves action, post-apocalyptic type material.
Come in, grab the books, read them.
Yes, read them. Come in, check them out. We should try to get them on.
Oh, and if you didn't realize, so reviews make a huge difference on indie books, because tells Amazon that you like it, and then Amazon will start showing it to more people.
Nice.
And get it more visibility. So, and you don't have to leave a review. You can just leave a star rating if you read in the app. I don't think you can do it on the computer. And so if you end up liking it, just in general, for all of the indie readers, books that you read, if you just take a moment and say, this kept me up all night, it was great, I recommend it for this reason. One line, click multiple stars, maybe 5.
Yeah.
And it makes a big difference. And you don't actually have to have bought the book on Amazon to review. I think you do have to have spent $50 on Amazon any given month or something to be allowed to review. There's some amount of spending. This keeps people from making up a bunch of fake
Oh,
accounts
yeah.
to like artificially cheat the system.
Right.
and
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So that's a good tip then. So if you guys go online and you guys venture out and find some indie authors, this is your.
This is what you can do back for them. This is how you can encourage them. They would love it. Love,
This is
love,
the
love it.
support that you should give people. Absolutely. Seek them out on Facebook, your social media, on Amazon, things like that. And go try something new. Like
Yeah.
always.
Mhm.
Because it's gonna be
I think Kindle Unlimited is the greatest. I mean, it's like $10 a month. You can even
Right.
get a sale
We both have
around
it.
Black
Yeah.
Friday, or
Yes.
you buy 6 months for half off or 30% off or something.
Yes.
I
And
think
then
you
just go
personally get it.
explore.
It was
Because
worth it.
it might have been like low quality type of books back when there weren't very many, but now there is so many, there's millions of them, that the cream floats to the top. There are excellent books in
Yes.
any.
Yes.
We agree with you. You read well, you're a lot faster reader. We all know that that I am the slowest reader ever. But
Well,
you
and for anybody that's curious, so like when you buy my book, if I get, 70% of what you make if it's over $2.99. The cheaper books, you get 35% of the money. But when you check it out on Kindle, that counts as a sale for my ranking. So the ranking of my book will move up just by you
Oh,
checking it
nice.
out. And
Huh.
then the way they pay you for the Kindle, the author gets paid when you flip a page. So if you read half the book, they get paid. It's a little over 4 cents or 0.04 cents per page. So
oh wow.
Wow.
if there's 300 or 400 pages, you might get about as much as you would for selling it for, say, $3 or so.
That's
So
really
the longer books, you'll actually get paid more because they have more pages.
yeah.
Right.
Your price would actually bring in, it depends.
I learned so
So-
much today. That is so
So now
cool.
you know that by you checking out, you're not cheating the authors of money. What happens is
Yeah.
everybody who pays their $10 a month goes into a pool. Amazon takes their big handful out, and then the rest gets divided out by how many pages were read that month.
Huh.
All the authors whose pages were read.
That is
So-
really cool.
Yeah, that is cool.
So the actual amount that gets paid changes every month, depending on how many new subscribers there are and how many pages got read. So I'm sure there's some people who pay for it and don't use it for a whole month, and some people who read a whole bunch for that month. And so your page read price will just fluctuate a little.
That's really cool.
Mhm.
Huh. You contribute a lot then.
Yeah, I do. I do. I can contribute all the money to everybody.
He's just draining it away. Pages.
All right, guys. Okay, so once again, you need to go check out Misty Zaugg and Stephanie Milcrease.
Yes, correct.
Okay, yes. Woo!
We
Yes.
both wrote together and we both have our own series. So pretty much just type our name in on Amazon and go to our author page. You can see everything there.
Yes.
Or come into the library and pick the book.
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
Yes. And thank you for joining
Yes,
us
thank
for our
you so
podcast.
much. This
Oh,
was
thanks
for having
amazing.
me.
It's really
It's
fun.
great. It's very flattering. You're like, oh, I'm famous. Somebody wants to talk to me.
We feel like we're famous.
Yeah.
We're talking to an author. Woohoo, it's so cool. We're so excited. We were so
Yes.
nervous. I was like, oh gosh, like, what if we mess it up? Like, what
Well,
if
you could mess up the intro like I did,
oh no.
We
Yeah,
messed up
welcome
at
to
least
On the
one-
Books.
one time.
On the books, off
On the books, off
On the books, off
through
the
the
air. You know,
books.
it's
It's about
fine.
the books. You know what I
Yes.
mean? And we're gonna send you a treat bag too. So expect that in a couple weeks.
Oh, that's
Hopefully-
so kind.
We hope you like it.
Oh, that's
Hopefully the
awesome.
mail doesn't take 5 billion
100
years.
years to get it to you. So
Yes. So you guys,
Awesome.
join us next week. We're going to be talking about Final Gambit,
yes.
a third book in our series that we have been reading. And we will see you guys next week, and we hope you have a great day. And thank you again, Misty, for joining us.
Thanks for having me. It was great.
Yes, thank you.
Awesome.